The eliminations are starting to pile up as we head into week 3 of the college football season. Only had a few after week 1, but now, again, we've got several more teams to eliminate. It's going to be a while before we eliminate any Power 4 teams. But as far as the group of 5, yeah, I think we can start eliminating teams. And we'll first look back at the teams we had already eliminated. Kennesaw State, they're not eligible. The New Mexico, UConn, UMass, those teams are already out of it. And then the new eliminations this week. Akron, Kent State, Jacksonville State, Old Dominion, South Alabama, Troy, UTEP, Western Michigan, and Wyoming. So I talked about this last week. I think the American and the Mountain West, those two conferences are considered to be better, a little bit better than Conference USA, the Sun Belt, and the MAC. So I said, you could probably eliminate teams out of the MAC, Sun Belt, and Conference USA with 2 losses, teams out of the American and Mountain West with 3 losses. But we've got the same thing we had last week with New Mexico. Wyoming, we've eliminated them, only 2 losses, but they lost to an FCS team and they got blown out in their other game. So there are exceptions there. I think we can eliminate the Cowboys. So Wyoming is out of the Mountain West Conference. And again, once we get to next week, we can start probably eliminating more American and Mountain West teams as some of them probably will start 0-3. It is interesting with the MAC, though. Maybe the MAC can be considered closer to the American and the Mountain West, the way they've looked so far. Of course, Northern Illinois pulling off the big upset over Notre Dame. We saw Bowling Green give Penn State all they wanted. So the MAC is interesting. We will see if how that plays out. But I really honestly think we're going to see an undefeated or 1-loss team emerge out of the group of 5. So 2 losses is probably going to eliminate you no matter what conference you're in. We'll just have to kind of see how the season starts to play out. But yeah, these teams all out of it now. Again, all these teams have 2 losses, and I don't see any real path for them. Crazy things could happen. We do have it in the past, had the category where we bring teams back from the dead, and we'll do that if we need to, but I don't think we're going to need to, especially with these teams. All right, now let's just look at the updated playoff picture. We've seen some changes. We'll start with the SEC. Still got the top 4 teams as favorites: Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas. Tennessee maybe creeping up into this discussion. Same thing with Missouri. I want to see a little bit more before I think that's definitely the case. But right now, I'm going to say these are the top at-large contenders: Tennessee and Missouri, and then also LSU and Texas A&M. I know both of those teams have a loss, but again, if you look at the schedule and the way that it sets up for them, I think both of those teams still have a decent chance to get to 9-3 or 10-2. 9-3 probably is not going to get a team in. Again, we don't know how it's going to look at the end of the season. We could see, we could see only 8 10-2 teams. There could be spots for 9-3 teams, or we could see 10-2 teams left out, which is actually what I predicted. I think Iowa was the team I predicted at 10-2 in the preseason to get left out of the playoff. But 9-3 gives you a chance, and I think all of these teams absolutely have a chance to get to 9-3. Talk about dark horses. We've removed Auburn and Kentucky. Don't really see those teams in this conversation after their losses this past Saturday. I think Oklahoma is the dark horse here. Not great against Houston, but still got a good defense. The schedule, again, that's kind of what we point to as far as being the one thing that's going to keep them more than likely from getting into the playoff. But it's an interesting team. We'll see what they look like moving forward. But again, it was not a great performance from them against Houston this past Saturday. Let's go to the Big Ten now. We've made some changes here as well. Ohio State and USC, if you look at it based off, just looking at these first 2 weeks, I think these are your favorites in the Big Ten. And I'm starting to look at USC and their schedule. Games that I thought were going to be a lot tougher, maybe they're not. They have Penn State. Maybe the West Virginia game was great for them, but maybe they're not as good as we thought after struggling with Bowling Green. We saw Notre Dame lose to Northern Illinois, and those are going to be 2 of the tough. How about Michigan? They've got no offense, so those are all games where I think you thought USC would probably struggle, and now all of a sudden you're thinking USC's probably the favorite in those games potentially. And so yeah, USC's season is starting to look a lot different than it did in the preseason, and even how it looked last week because of some of these other teams struggling. Long season, we'll see what happens, but I think these are currently the 2 favorites in the Big Ten. And then you've got your top at-large contenders, Penn State and Oregon. Both of these teams I still think have a great shot to get to maybe 10-2 and get into the playoff. Oregon's got to step it up. They've got to play better. They've got some tough games coming up. Penn State's got a pretty favorable schedule, so I think 10-2 is definitely still a very likely scenario for them. And so these, again, are your top at-large contenders. And you look at the dark horses in the Big Ten, Michigan, Nebraska, and Iowa. Michigan's got to find some offense. They've got some tough games. I think it's going to be tough for them. Again, the USC game is one I looked at the preseason. I thought, yeah, Michigan probably going to win that game. Now, USC might be the team that's going to be favored in that game. I haven't seen the lines. I don't know actually who's favored. I'm sure that's come out, but that's going to be a great game. Nebraska, after their win over Colorado, and a very favorable schedule. Watch out for the Cornhuskers. And then Iowa, tough loss to Iowa State, but their schedule is not bad either. They've still got a great opportunity to get to 10-2 potentially. We'll see how that plays out for the Hawkeyes. Now we'll go to the ACC. No changes here. Clemson, Miami, Louisville. Clemson definitely reassured everyone that they are a contender in the ACC. Louisville, we haven't seen them really play a tough opponent yet, so hard to say when it comes to Louisville. But again, I said this last week. They get Clemson and Miami on the schedule. Other than that, their ACC schedule is not bad at all. If they win one of those two games, I think Louisville will be in the ACC championship. So that's going to be the key for them. If they lose them both, I think it's probably going to be Miami-Clemson. If they win one of those, then they could potentially play the other team in a rematch in the ACC championship. Of course, they could win on both. And then in the dark horse, or the top, first we got to go to the top at-large contenders. Notre Dame is still here, but after losing to Northern Illinois, maybe I should actually take them off. I don't know what to think about Notre Dame. I mean, if they went out, they should get in at 11-1. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what they look like against Purdue. I may take them off of this if they struggle next week. Even if they win, but they struggle, I'll probably take them off. But I don't want to get, maybe it was just one bad game. We'll see. Dark horses, though, you could almost put the whole conference in here. I mean, everyone's got a shot. Even Florida State with 2 losses, they've still got a shot. They could bounce back. Virginia Tech, all these teams. Virginia is 2-0. But I'm going to go with North Carolina, Boston College, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse for now. Again, just put the whole ACC in here. I have no idea what's going to happen. It really feels like Miami, Clemson, and Louisville have kind of separated themselves in this conference. And I don't even know if Louisville for sure is in that category. It might just be Clemson and Miami all the way. Again, we'll find out more about Louisville in the next few weeks. Let's go to the Big 12 now. We got Oklahoma State, Utah, Kansas State, Iowa State, and Arizona. Iowa State elevates into the favorites after their win over Iowa. Now they're looking like a real player in this conference. Oklahoma State, Utah, we've kind of had them in there this whole time. Kansas State, Arizona, I've still got my question marks about those teams, but we'll see. Actually, they play Friday night, right? So that's going to be a great game. Honestly, that might be the best game of the weekend, but it's on a Friday, which does put the spotlight on that game, but means no game day. You can't get game day at that game. Maybe they would have gone there if it was on Saturday. And then we'll look now at the dark horses, TCU, Kansas, UCF, West Virginia. All these teams, I think, have a lot of potential. TCU and UCF undefeated. They play this Saturday. That's going to be a great game. Kansas and West Virginia have a loss, but I still think they have potential, so I'm not counting them out just yet. Again, I think these are the dark horses in the Big 12. So I'm not even going to do a page for the Group of 5. I want to see a little bit more football. It's tough to really hone in on favorites in those spots right now. But let's see a few more games. Boise State looked good even though they lost to Oregon. Memphis gets Florida State this weekend. Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, so look at them out of the MAC. Liberty probably still out of the Conference USA. And the Sun Belt had App State. Now I don't know, after they got blown out by Clemson, that one could be wide open. So interesting in the Group of 5 as far as who's going to be that team. I think it's wide open for sure. But again, this is the updated playoff picture. We'll have more eliminations next week, I'm sure. Kind of a quiet weekend this weekend as far as big games, but again, we will, I'm sure, start to narrow this thing down. And once we get into October, it should get narrowed down pretty quickly. Your thoughts on the playoff picture so far? Let me know what you think down in the comments below.